All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 90. 10 away from the 100. This week, it was Maverick's pick, and he picked Prisoners of Ghostland. And then, like, 3 days later, he was like, never mind, we're watching Terrifier. And, I believe when you told me you were picking that movie, Maverick, I was like, oh, that movie fucking sucks.
You did say that. Hurt my feelings, man.
Yeah, and you were like, no, there's no way. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad. Um, but we watched Terrifier from 2018. Technically, it's 2016.
2017.
2016, it premiered at, like, festivals and shit, but it didn't get, like, a release until 2018. So, you know, that's cool. This is also not technically, but it's not the first time the Art the Clown has been on screen.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
You said art? Art?
Art.
A-R-T.
Yeah, like drawing.
Like drawing.
He was there was a movie in 2013 called All Hallows Eve, which is kind of like Trick or Treat that we watched, you know, where it's an anthology, it's different stories and the thing. And he was one of the stories, and people liked him, so they made a full feature length starring Art the Clown. But anyway, Terrifier from 2018. Watching it again, I guess I can't hate it that much because it does what it sets out to do. It's just like a gory, like, kind of slasher type movie with yeah, I don't know. I'll give it a 4.5. Like, I still don't think it's very good, but
Okay.
I think they accomplished what they set out to do. So I'll give them a 4.5. What are you gonna give this one?
Okay. I'm off a solid 5.
Yeah,
I'm good with that. Yeah.
yeah.
It was decent.
Hmm.
You know.
It was you know, we're
It
back.
was definitely a one-off for sure.
Yeah, back to back weeks with just like over the top gore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was last week?
Toxic Avenger.
Oh yeah, that had way more gore than this.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
Like, Toxie had the kid getting run over, and then, like, the guy getting his head crushed with the weights. But all the other gore was kind of just, like, that one guy gets his arm ripped off, and some people get, like, eyes plucked out or whatever. But this, like, I mean, we'll get into it, but I feel like this had a lot more gore than Toxie.
No, there's no way. You're out of your mind.
I mean, specifically, even one scene that's the only scene anyone ever remembers from this movie. That, you know... Well, my dog's fucking coughing. Will you shut up? I'm trying to do something here. Alright. Well, hey, spoiler warning for Terrifier. We're going to ruin everything about it. So if you've never seen it, you've been warned. So, you had told me that you saw a scene from it, and you were like, now we're watching that movie. Was the scene when the girl gets cut in half?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only scene anyone ever talks about from this movie.
I had never seen it before.
Yeah, that's the only reason I ever watched it back in the day, because I saw the girl getting sliced in half. And I was like, well, gotta watch that now. But, yeah, that's like the scene from Terrifier. If you mention Terrifier, they're like, is that the one where the girl gets sawed in half by the clown? And people are like, yeah. So, there you go. Where did you see that? Was that on YouTube or like iFunny?
YouTube.
YouTube? How the fuck?
Yeah.
Uncensored on YouTube?
Not uncensored, I don't think.
Oh, okay. I was about to say. Titties are hanging down?
Yeah, I didn't expect this movie to have nudity. I didn't think it would.
Yeah.
But it does.
Yeah, it does. But, you know. Also, I can't remember if a sequel has already come out to it, or if they're just making the sequel. I know they're making another one, if it hasn't been made already. But that's something. I don't think I'll be in a rush to watch it, but I'll probably watch it eventually. Um, the movie starts off, Maverick, with an old style like television sitting on the ground. And it's all staticky and shit. And a newscast eventually comes on, and the anchor lady is like, "Oh, today we have a special guest. It's the sole survivor of the Deer Town massacre or wherever the place was. That's here with us." And she's like, I don't remember how she introduces her, but then we pan over and we see the girl is like horribly disfigured. Her face is all messed up.
Yeah, all fucked up.
Yeah, and and the girl's like, yeah, your face is messed up. How hard was it moving on with life after waking up from your coma and shit? Which none of this makes any sense later when we get to the movie. But she's like, how is it carrying on with your life now that with your face like this? And Lay's like, kids are afraid of me, all this shit. I wanted to die, all this other shit. And then she's like, well, can I ask you about the assailant, Art the Clown? That's all we know is apparently his name is Art the Clown, who his body disappeared from the police morgue or whatever. And the girl is like, no, he died. I saw him die, all this shit. And they're like, all right, well, thanks for joining us. And then we go back to where it's just the TV screen, and we see someone walk up and fucking kick the TV, and the TV, like, blows up and shit. Then the guy who just kicked the TV walks over, and we get a whole montage of him putting on his clown makeup and like getting weapons ready and shit. There was one that I got excited for when I didn't remember a whole lot about this movie. I remembered certain parts, but there was one I got excited for where he picks it up and it was like a whip made of scalpels and like scissors and shit. And I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool, but I wasn't expecting him to use it. And then later on he did. I went, yeah. As I was sitting there.
That was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like scalpels, and there was a pair of like scissors on there and shit. But yeah, we get a whole montage of him putting on his makeup, which I forgot about. I kind of thought he just always had the makeup, but apparently it's just a dude putting on makeup. And he loads up on weapons to the point that his weapons are in a giant black trash bag. Like if you were doing yard work and you were putting leaves and shit in that bitch. It's one of those trash bags just filled with weapons. Yeah, man. Yeah, he gets the weapons, walks out the door. He goes to do his shit. We then cut over to the news lady who is backstage now, and she's on the phone with her husband. And she's talking about the lady she just interviewed. And she's like, if you thought it was hard looking at her on the TV, imagine how hard it was being that close to her. I was almost gagging and shit. And she's like, if I ever look like that, just kill me already, and all this. And so she's basically just talking a whole bunch of shit about this lady.
Yeah, belting her.
As she's saying all this, she keeps hearing like noises behind her and stuff. And so she'll like look back, but she doesn't see anything. And eventually she's like, all right, hey, I gotta let you go, because she just heard a noise behind like this clothes rack where all these coats and shit are hanging. So she walks over to this clothes rack. She grabs the clothes, and it's a classic horror movie thing where she just fucking and like whips them all back, but there's no one there. And so she's like, all right, maybe I'm just freaked out or something. She turns back around, and the face bitch is standing there and immediately just grabs her by the neck and takes her down and shit. And she gets on top of her and like puts her thumbs in her eyes and fucking like just digs in there and blood and
takes her
out. The weird thing to me is then they do like a pan around with the camera to reveal the girl with the scarred face is the one who did the killing, and she's like kind of smiling. And I was like, were we not supposed to know it was the scarred face girl that was doing the killing? Like they did it like it was a big reveal that was the girl, and I was like, all right, But anyway, she kills the news anchor. I don't think she really did kill her. I think she's just leaving her disfigured, like that lady was talking about. Yeah,
she looked pretty fucking dead to me.
Yeah, but all she did was dig the fingers in the eyes. Yeah.
But then, like, her whole face was, like, deformed.
Yeah, we don't ask questions around here. But anyway, yeah, and then we see her smiling with blood on her face, and we cut to the title card of Terrifier. This dog is freaking out. What do you want, dog? Come here. There's a puppy now. It's not really a puppy. This dog's probably gonna die.
Damn.
I didn't mean that. You sit here now. Yeah, so we do the title card, and then we go over to who are our main characters, I guess you could say, which are Tara, and I believe Brooke might be the blonde chick's name. The only time you ever see it is like when Art uses the phone to text the little sister later on. And you, like, see her name, but I forget what it was. But they're walking down the road. It is Halloween night, and they are super drunk. I guess they just came from a party. They are arguing about who's going to drive home. The blonde chick wants to drive, but Tara is like, no, you're drunk, let me drive and all this shit. And they argue for a little bit, and eventually the blonde's like, here, just take the keys. So she gets it, and then immediately is like, you know what? I'm too drunk to drive, too. Let's go get some food so I can sober up. And, like...
Yeah, I think she's like, I'm fucking lit.
Yeah, she's like, I'm lit. So they're like, all right, well, there's a place right up the road. Let's go fucking, get something to eat. So they go to the restaurant. Before they even get to the restaurant, or before they even have that discussion, it's still when they're arguing about who's going to drive home, is the first time that we see Art walking down the alleyway towards them with the sack over his shoulder. And the Tara sees this happening and, like, looks at him, and he stops and stares at her, and they're, like, staring at each other. And Tara's like, hey, check this guy out, And so then the blonde, who's all drunk, starts, like, yelling at him and all this shit. And then when they like, Tara turns to her and is like, hey, knock that off. And the girl's like, oh, whatever. And when they turn back, Art's gone. So immediately, that's your first, like, oh, this guy's creepy.
Yeah. Well, clown is creepy to begin with.
Yeah, plus, Art has, like, this, like, crooked nose, like, thing.
Yeah, his facial features are fucking wild.
Yeah, which
they did a really good job on his whole getup, including like the makeup.
Yeah, that's when they decide that they're gonna go to the restaurant and sober up and all this shit.
Yeah, she said she needed some food or something.
Yeah,
to sober up. So
they go to this pizza place where it's like the dude who owns the shop and then like the other dude is working, and they're sitting there waiting for their food. The blonde chick's like taking selfies, all this shit. As they're sitting there, wouldn't you know it, Art the Clown comes walking in, and he sits down across the restaurant from the girls. Tara immediately like stares at him as he walks in, and he stares right back. He never turns away from her. And they're stuck in like a dead stare. And then eventually Art is like just staring at her, and he's like, and he starts smiling and doing a whole bunch of hand gestures.
Yeah, creepy, dude.
Yeah. He's doing like a whole show for her, and Tara eventually that makes her like turn away. And then she tells the blonde chick, she's like, I want to leave. We should take our food to go. And the blonde turns around and sees Art, and she's like, really? This guy again? You're scared of him? So she goes over, and it's like, hey, and she's like tapping him on the shoulder. She's like, can I get a selfie with you? Art never answers her. He keeps staring at Tara. So eventually the chick just like moves his arm, and then Art is wearing like this little black top hat, and she takes it and like flicks it against his face. And I was like, God damn. um, she like moves his arm and just sits down on his lap and starts taking pictures. And this finally gets Art to like turn and look at her while she's taking the pictures. So she takes him. She goes over to Tara. She's like, see, he's fine, you know. Art then, right after that, gets up and goes to buy first off, he steals a tip off the table. Very rude. He steals a quarter off the table. He then goes to like the little gumball machine, but it's not gumballs. It's like these fake little plastic rings. And he buys one, and he goes over to Tara, and he's like, huh? And he like gives her the ring. And she takes it, and she's like, thanks, I guess. And Art's like, and then he goes walking towards the back of the restaurant. And the blonde chick's like, see, he's nice. That's a nice thing a guy's done for you in years or whatever. So they sit there talking for a little bit more, and then the next thing you know, the guy who owns the pizza shop comes dragging Art from back where the bathroom is. And he's like, you fucking freak. He's like, get the fuck out of my restaurant and shit. And he tosses him out the door. He takes the bag and tosses the bag out towards him. Which everyone keeps acting like this bag is way lighter than I think it actually would be. But he tosses the bag out.
It's insane, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, get the fuck out of here, you know? And then he turns to the other guy and he's like, Ricky, grab a mop. So after that, the blonde chick and Tara finally are like, all right, let's get out of here. As they're walking home, or walking back towards the car, Tara is like, what do you think he was doing back there? And the blonde chick is like, he's probably jerking off or something. You probably like turned him on too much. He couldn't handle it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And she's like, no, you know. And so then the blonde is like, all right, you good to drive now? And Tara's like, trust me, I'm sobered up after all that. And I was like, yeah, I probably would be too. Of course, when they get back, though, the tire, I don't think it was slashed. I think it was just flat, right? Like the air was let out of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like supposed to be that homeboy popped it.
Yeah, but I feel like they would have like been more freaked out if it was slashed. But they were just like, oh, it's flat. So I think maybe he just like let the air out or something.
Yeah.
But either way, the tire is out of commission, so they can't drive. They have a spare, but like neither of them know how to change a tire and all this shit. So Tara is like, well, I'll call my sister. So she calls her sister, and her sister is like, oh, I'm over here studying for like my midterm or whatever. And the Tara's like, oh, sorry, you know, the tire over here is flat. We need you to come pick us up. And the sister is like, I gotta wake up in 5 hours. But I was sitting there like, well, aren't you studying? Like, you're not going to sleep. Like, like I was
busy, Tom.
I know, but I was like, you're gonna be up anyway. Like, she's using sleep as an excuse, you know. So she's not gonna do it. But then, like, who I thought was her roommate came busting in with a dude, and they
I
like
think that was supposed to be her roommate. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and they get on her bed and start like going the fuck. So she's like, all right, I'll be there. But then if you look, it's only one bed I saw in that whole. It looked like one dorm. So I was like, and she's like, who are you? So I was like, is this just random people who opened her door? But I think it must have been a roommate and like a dude. But I just didn't see another bed, so I didn't know what was going on there. But yeah, so she's like, all right, I'll come get you. Back at the restaurant, we see the dude who works there is in the bathroom, and there is shit all over this place. There's like shit on the wall. He spelled out his name, Art, and shit. It's all over the toilet seat and stuff. I do like the guy is like, ah man, make the food guy clean up the shit real sanitary. And I was like, yeah. um, and he's yelling at the boss. He's like, I better be getting a time and a half for this. This is ridiculous. All this shit. So that's what was happening in the bathroom that made the dude so upset. The after he gets done cleaning up, he then comes out and he's looking for the manager dude, and he's like, "Hey, Bobby," or whatever his name is. He's like, "Where are you?" You know, and as he turns the corner, we see the manager's head has been cut off and turned into a jack-o'-lantern. Which there was a scene earlier where, as it pans screen, you see like a real jack-o'-lantern sitting right where the head is. So that's like now the head is the jack-o'-lantern. And Art is standing there with a meat cleaver. And he's like, you know. So the dude is like, oh, fuck. So he goes running. Art chases him. The guy eventually reaches for a phone to call the police. And as he does that, Art comes down and chops the dude's hand in half with the meat cleaver. And the dude, like, immediately falls to his knees. And he's like, his hand's cut in half. And then Art pulls out like a scalpel and stabs him in the cheek, and after that, it then does the scene where it intercuts, like with the girls in the car, and Tara is telling the blonde chick how she thinks it was the clown guy who messed up her tire, and the girl's like, nah, he's not, you know, someone
He's
who would
harmless.
And as it's doing that, it'll intercut with the dude just stabbing him in the face a bunch. And I mean, he stabs homie more times than I can count, to the point the dude's face is just all messed up. There is one part I didn't like where his like tongue is like sticking out, moving on the side. I didn't like the tongue bit, but you know, him getting stabbed in the face all that time was pretty cool. So he kills the two pizza shop owners, and that's the end of that scene. Next, Tara has to piss because she's, drank a bunch of alcohol. That'll do it. And she's like, fuck, I gotta go piss. There's no one around here to go. As she says that, the building in front of them, a guy comes walking out. And the blonde chick is like, well, just go ask him if you can take a piss. And she immediately gets out and goes up to him. And the blonde chick is like, I was just playing, So she goes up. She's like, can I go in there? I really need to use the bathroom. It's an emergency. He's like, oh, I'm not supposed to let people in. The blonde chick from the car is like, she'll make it worth your while. And I was like, oh. And so the dude's like, all right, fine. Just for a second. Come on in. So she comes in. Turns out this guy's like an exterminator. And they were just about to like put a bunch of gas and shit in the building to kill rats and all this shit. Which, the weird thing, that rat thing never comes back. Like, there's never a scene where rats come into play. There's never, like... For some reason, I thought, like, they were going to end up gassing the building, and then they were going to have to deal with, like, they were stuck in a building where it was gassed, and they were, like, breathing in the toxins, But they never do that. So... And the guy never gasses the building. Like,
he's like cleaning it at some point, right?
He's like mopping. So he turns into like a janitor. And even if he's like, oh, I was just about to gas this place, then we see he can't even gas the place until his other buddy shows up later with the gas stuff. So it was like, what was that guy talking about? Like, I don't know. And they're wearing two completely different uniforms. It doesn't make sense. But he lets her in, takes her to the bathroom. He's like, all right, have a good night. Go piss or whatever. Back in the car, the blonde chick is taking selfies, and she has the radio on. And as she has the radio on, she hears a newscast saying that two men were found dead in the Deer Point pizza place or whatever. And she immediately is like, oh, fuck, because they were just there. And then she hears that police are on the lookout for a man dressed in black and white as a clown who's armed and dangerous or whatever. And she's like, what? And she looks at her pictures and sees the selfie that she took with Art. And she's like, oh my God, As it does this, by the way, there's an ambulance that drives by. And apparently that was like just a real ambulance that drove by right then. Like, and it was just, they were like, oh, cool, that ambulance drove by, and they just used it in the scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so shout out to that. That was a problem I had, is supposedly, this double murder just happened, and police are on the lookout for this armed and dangerous man. Where were the police? The whole you don't see a single cop until the very end of the movie when they get called this place. There's never like any cop cars around the buildings or anywhere, because they're not very far from that pizza place. I mean, it's not like they walked miles from where they were. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so she's like, oh fuck, this is wild. As she's hearing this, the side door opens up and someone gets in, and she's like, oh, you're never going to believe what I just heard. But as she turns, she sees it's not Tara, it's Art sitting there with blood on his face, and he's smiling at her. And she's like, ah, and she yells, and we cut away. And that's the last we'll see of Tara for a little bit. Or not Tara, the blonde chick. After that, we go back to Tara, who is walking out of the building to leave. But before she leaves, she starts hearing these weird, like, cat noises and shit. So she follows the noises until she finds, like, this hidden kind of corridor behind this wall, and she opens it up and goes walking in, and goes walking towards where the noise is, but then she stops and listens to it some more, and she's like, you know what, I'm not going to go down there. And she starts to back up, but she backs up right into this random weird lady who is sitting here with this doll, who she's like, this is my daughter. And yeah, and this lady's real weird. It's the weirdest part of the movie, probably. It's just this random doll lady who lives in this house. She's like, you must be the new neighbor. She's like, we could do our laundry together. I could use the company. And I was like, is that a thing neighbors do? They do their laundry together?
Well, she was saying she needed someone to talk to.
Yeah. I do appreciate that Tara is just like, yeah, we can do that, And
Yeah,
she's
she
like,
just goes along with it.
yeah, I really like that, because instead of being like, what are you talking about? And like she's just like, I gotta go pay the rent, and she completely goes along with that. So I did appreciate that little touch. Yeah, so that girl, she freaks out Tara, and Tara's like, I gotta go talk to the landlord real fast, and she, like, speed walks out of there.
Get the fuck out of here.
By the way, do you ever see any cats in this movie?
Not that I can remember.
Yeah, like, we never find out what that sound was down the hallway. Like, I don't remember there, like, I thought maybe it was gonna be, like, a giant rat. Like, that was where the rat thing was gonna come. I don't know what was going on there, but it's whatever. So Tara leaves, she goes into the next room, and she's like, oh, that was pretty weird, and then she turns, and Art is standing there, smiling at her again, with a scalpel in his hand, and he's all bloody, and he just keeps staring at her, and then eventually he's like, ha! He, like, jumps.
Yeah, he does a jump.
Yeah.
Scared the fuck out of me.
So she goes running. Also, he did not make that sound. He never talks or makes any noise.
The sound,
yeah. Which
I liked. I liked that a lot.
I did wonder, like, because later he like gets stabbed in the foot at one point, and I remember being like, because he doesn't even yell then, he's just like that, and I remember being like, I wonder if like he ripped out his tongue or like if he's got something going on there. But even if you rip out your tongue, you're still like, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. We'll do an experiment one day. We'll figure out. So she runs away. She goes into like this garage area, and she hides behind this car. And she keeps looking underneath the car to see like Art's feet and shit. And eventually, his feet, like, walk away from where she is, and she can't see him anymore. So she gets up, and she's like, okay, he's gone. And she, like, starts to sneak away, and then she stops behind, like, this dumpster-looking thing, and she's, like, looking around, And then Art, I guess, just snuck up behind her and crouched down and grabs her leg, and he's just like, he's just
Yeah,
like,
he's just shanking the fuck out of her.
yeah, like just stabbing into her calf, all and just slicing it up and stuff. And she's like, what the fuck, you know? So they start fighting. He gets on top of her and starts to choke her. But she manages to grab the scalpel that he dropped and stab him in the side, and she can run away. She runs away, gets to this doorway, this door. She's trying to open it, but it can't open. So then she goes and hides behind this little box type thing, just in time for Art to come and walk and stand there, even though she's clearly like right next to him. And he's like, and he's just standing there. She reaches down and grabs like a bolt that's on the ground and tosses it so it makes a noise and makes Art go in the opposite direction of where she is. So Art goes away. We then cut real fast to see the sister, who is just now like on the highway. So I guess maybe, you know, I don't know how far away she lived from where this was happening, so maybe that's why she was like, I gotta go wake up in 5 hours or whatever. But we see her driving on the way there, and she hears over the radios about the murder and all this shit. So now she's like, oh great, you know. Tara, who's limping and trying to get out of here, sees that exterminator dude working down the hall, and she yells at him, but homie has like earphones on, so he can't hear nothing. He's listening to music. I do always hate scenes like that where they just yell at them and never like, if I saw someone, I would immediately run to them, you know, and be like, hey, but she just stands down at the end of the hall and is yelling at him. So he can't hear her. So she like just continues to yell louder, and then eventually he like, the song has a moment where it's quiet and he's able to hear her, and so he like takes off his headphone and goes to turn, but right before he turns around, Art grabs the girl from the side and moves her behind the wall, and then sticks like some sleepy juice into her neck, and it makes her pass out.
Drugs her.
Yeah. So then the dude's like, oh, and puts his headphone back on and goes back to work. Next up, Tara wakes up, and she's tied to a chair, and there's tape over her mouth. And there's a big curtain in front of her, like 20 feet away. Standing right next to her is Art, who has all of his weapons on the ground and shit. And he's holding, like, this little tomahawk, and he keeps, like, being like, huh? Like, acting like he's gonna hit her.
Psyching her out.
Yeah, which made me laugh. I thought that was funny. And eventually he's like, and he puts it down, and then he like picks up a hacksaw, and he's like, and he like grabs her by the hair, and she's like yelling and shit, and once again he's like, and he like pulls it away. So then Art leaves her, he walks across the room to where the curtain is, and he yanks it down, and there, tied up by the ankles, is the blonde chick, who is now naked except for like some underwear she has on. But that doesn't last very long because Art just like grabs them and rips them off and shit. So now she's like completely naked. And he takes the hacksaw and from the bottom to the head just starts carving through her.
Carving her up.
Yeah.
Man.
And there is one part where it goes and you see a back shot of like the booty and the hacksaw going through the booty. And I was like, oh, the booty. But yeah, he just saws all the way through this lady. Organ's falling out, all the shit. I was left unsatisfied because he never like, he gets down to like the head, but then he leaves like the forehead part connected. Like she's still connected at the head. And I was like, no, finish the job. But yeah, he carves through her, and like I said earlier, if you know anything about Terrifier, that's the scene you know. That's the scene everyone knows from Terrifier, is the saw in half thing. Which, I mean, you don't see that often, you know? Like, so it's cool.
It was good.
Yeah. I can only think of a couple movies, maybe. There's only one more, like, that I'm dead, that I know for a fact has like kind of that same thing. They don't do it the same way, but it's like the same, like from cock to head, and they rip people apart. But yeah, so it's definitely something you'll remember if you see it. As that's happening though, Tara just manages to like break the arm off of her chair and untie herself, so she gets away again. She goes running. Art goes and chases her down. But as he gets to her, she like just stabs him in the shoulder with like a knife that she found, I guess. Or did she stab him in the shoulder with the chair
scalpel.
leg? Oh, the scalpel? Okay.
Yeah, he breaks his scalpel. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't remember because she stabs him with the scalpel in the side earlier when he was choking her. But I couldn't remember what she stabs him with in the shoulder here. But either way, she stabs him with something and she's able to get away again. We then get a scene where Art is looking for her, but kind of a role reversal type of thing. She sneaks up behind Art and hits him in the side of the head with a 2x4. And then she just like kicks the shit out of him. Just keeps beating him up and shit. But eventually she does what I hate when the horror people do this, is she beats him up and he's laying there, and then she starts getting cocky. And she's like, yeah, come on, get up, instead of just following through and keep on,
Come on, you gotta follow through, man.
Yeah, which,
Hit them while they're down.
Movies back, like, this only came out, like, a couple years ago. But even movies a couple years ago did all this. Nowadays, anytime this is happening, horror movies, they make sure that, like, the people keep hitting it. It's almost gotten to the point where they know that that's, like, a thing, so they make sure their people keep hitting. So it's weird going back and watching people be dumb and not like keep on hitting people. But she's like, come on, get up, So Art like gets to one knee and he's like, and finally she's like, and she comes to go hit him again. And then Art just pulls out a Glock.
He was so smooth with it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it at all.
And
he's like kneeling down, and she's going to hit him for the last time, and this man hits her with the quick draw.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. And
it caught me so off guard. I was like, holy shit.
And he shoots her in the leg. And then he like shoots her in the gut, and he's standing over her. And then he aims at her head and shoots again, but you don't see it. And I remember being like, he didn't shoot her. And then we come back and we see like the bullet in her cheek, and I was like, "Oh!" I was like, "All right, I guess he did shoot her then." People, by the way, are kind of split on how they feel about this Maverick, because some people think it's kind of cheap. The slasher guy just pulls out a gun and starts shooting people, and some people don't like that he uses the gun here. I kind of think it was cool. Like it was kind of his like last resort, like things were going bad, so he had like that reverse Uno card, and he like had the gun. So I like it, but it has split people who watch this movie, where some of them are like, I hate that he uses that gun.
It was wild. I didn't expect it at all.
Yeah,
he was so smooth with it too. He was like, "Gotcha, bitch," and I was like, "Oh shit."
I was watching a movie from the 70s the other day, and like the whole movie is like this build up where like this older dude is gonna have like a fight with this other dude, like, and they're wizards and they use magic and shit. But the older dude is like way weaker nowadays than he was back in the day when they first fought. And so they're like, "How are you gonna win?" He's like, "Oh, well." So then they get there, and the other more powerful dude is like, "All right, let's do this shit." And the guy's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." He just pulled out a gun and shot him. And that was it. That was it. He killed him. And I was like, all right, that was pretty good. But it kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, so he shoots her, and then shoots her in the cheek, like I said. I literally have written down in my notes, he then shoots her in the side and then aims at her head and shoots, but we don't actually see her get shot. So I don't think it really happened. And then right next to that is, oh, never mind, it's in her cheek. So she's sitting there, the bullet's in her cheek, and she's like, you know. Art aims at her head again and goes to shoot, but he's out of ammo. And I like how, like, just annoyed Art looks. He's like, like when the gun. Yeah. So he turns around to go, like, get more ammo. And when he does, or no, this afterwards. So he leaves to go get more ammo. He finds the bag. He loads up the gun. As he's sitting there, Tara's phone starts ringing, and it's the sister who has arrived at the building. She's out front. And Art doesn't answer, but then the sister texts and is like, hey, I'm out front. Where are you guys? So Art uses the other girl's phone to text her back and say, hey, come around back. Tara's sick or whatever. So the sister out front is like, so she goes walking around the back. Art loads the gun and then just goes walking over. And you think, like, he's going to do, like, some big show with the gun or something. But he just walks up and just brains the girl in the head with the gun and shoots her. And you're like, oh, all right. And then he's like, It's just...
unloads on her.
Yeah. And he shoots her a lot in the face. And so Tara is dead. So both of our main characters now have been killed in the movie. As he shoots her, that weird doll lady from earlier sees this happen, and Art sees her and, like, waves at her, and so she goes running away. The doll lady runs until she finds that exterminator dude again, and, like, calls out to him, and is like, hey, there's a clown, he's killing people, you know, all this shit. The dude is just like, who the fuck are you, you know? He's like, you're crazy, you need to get out of here. And he just kind of shrugs her off and, like, leaves her. So the doll lady is like, fuck, you know, what am I going to do? She goes to leave. The exterminator dude just, like, walks into another room and then gets hit in the head by a hammer. Art is just, like, standing there and he, like, and hits him in the head. And I remember being like, all right, is that the end of that guy? Like, he just leaves him. And that's when the guy gets a phone call on his phone from the other exterminator who's showing up, and Art just, like, breaks the phone or whatever. The doll lady goes back to her little hideout, and she sees that her doll is gone from its crib. So she goes to find it, and she sees that Art has the doll, and he's, like, sitting on the ground with it and shit. And so she's like, hey, you know, don't hurt my baby, all this shit. And then the movie gets real weird, where she starts talking about, you know, have you ever felt the love of a mother and all this shit? And she, like, caresses Art's cheek, and he, like, leans into it, and then, like, she pulls him in for a hug, and Art's, like, sucking on his thumb and stuff, and I was like, what's going on? Like,
It was a weird one.
Yeah, I don't know. We cut away. The other exterminator dude shows up, but the door's locked, so he's stuck outside. The sis comes in through the back, and she comes walking in, and she sees the blonde chick all strung up and dead. So she starts freaking out. She goes looking for her sister. There's a set of stairs that she sees, and she goes and walks down those. And she comes across who she thinks is her sister laying on the ground. And she's like, Tara, you know, and she goes running over to her, and she's like, I gotta get you out of here, all this shit. And then you hear a voice. I don't remember what the lady said, but you hear someone say something, and you turn and look.
She said, like, Emily, help me.
Yeah.
Somehow she knew that chick's name was Emily. I don't know.
I guess, but she turns and looks, and we see the doll lady laying on the ground, and, like, her tits have been skinned off, and she's been scalped, and all this stuff. And then the person on the ground who the lady thought was Tara is actually Art the Clown, who sits up, and he's like, and he's got the hair, but it's still his face. And so the sis takes off, goes running. Art then comes after her, and he's like, he has just tits on him, and he's like, he's doing like a sexy dance.
So wild.
Yeah. The weird thing is, you can see it's only like her chest and scalp that was scalped, or skinned or whatever. but Art has like a full bodysuit of skin. But I was like, maybe that's
I
just
think that
his
was
actual
his.
skin. Yeah, he
Yeah,
just
he's a
took.
pretty skinny guy.
I
So
guess. But yeah, so he's just naked now, and he's like wearing the girl's parts, and he's walking after the chick. The sister then hides in a locker like she's playing Outlast, and she's like peeking her eye out, and not even for a second, like Art knows where she is the whole time. Like Art's looking at the locker, and he's like pointing at her, and like the girl, I guess, thinks maybe he's bluffing, and she doesn't do anything. She just still like tries to stay hidden. Uh, so Art like goes around the side and then comes and pops out again and like grabs the locker and starts shaking it. Right as he does that, though, outside, the exterminator dude, who's been getting increasingly more mad throughout the movie because he can't get in contact with the other dude, is out there honking. And he's like, hey, come on, what are we doing here? And so Art gets, like, spooked off, and so he leaves the girl in the locker. The exterminator dude goes to leave. He like throws his stuff in the back of the truck, and he's like, you're on your own, buddy. But right before he leaves, he's like, oh, wait a minute. And he goes and checks, and sure enough, there's a key to the building underneath the mat. And so the dude's like, and so now he's able to get into the building. But the guy, he literally walks in, he's like, all right, I'm in. And then he's like, oh, hey, what's that doll there? He gets stabbed. Like, I don't think he lasts more than...
he died so quick.
Yeah. He leans down to get the doll. Art comes up behind him, stabs him in the top of the head, and then Art uses, like, a bigger, like, machete or something, and cuts the guy's head off.
He cut his head off quick.
Yeah, it was like a jihad video that you find on LiveLeak.
Jeez.
It was...
Yeah.
It was something. But anyway, then he also, when the head's on the ground, he kicks it like a soccer ball. And I was like, oh, man, why you gotta be disrespectful? So that guy's dead. The sister is like trying to find a way out again. And she goes and hides in like this doorway. And she sees Art, who has a tricycle now and is driving around.
Best scene.
Yeah, and he sees her doing like, or she sees him doing like donuts and shit on the tricycle. And then he kind of just drives away.
He was full on, what is it, Saw?
Yeah. Billy the Puppet.
Yep.
Yeah. So, she goes walking through like this other doorway. Art sneaks up behind her again with some cellophane wrap or whatever that shit is. And,
yeah, just some piece of plastic.
Yeah, and wraps it around her face. And starts to smother her. And then after a while, she's like, hey, wait a minute. And she's just like, and just pokes herself and rips it. And gets away. And Art even like looks at it. And he's like, shit. Like looking at the plastic that she ripped. She runs away again. Or no, before she runs away, she leans down and grabs like a nail or something. I don't know what she grabbed here.
Like a railroad spike.
It looked like a railroad spike, but I was like, it can't be a railroad spike, And she stabs Art in the foot and then goes running off. And I do like as she's running off, Art is like, he's flipping her off as she's running away. Then we go over and we see that the other exterminator dude who got hit with the hammer is still alive. He's crawling around. I was like, oh, look at that dude. The sister finds Tara, who's propped up in a chair now with like some Halloween lights and shit wrapped around her. And her face is all fucked up because she was shot like 17 times. And so the sister's all sad. She's crying and shit. Art sneaks up behind her, and this is when he uses that whip that I said I was excited about earlier with the scalpels and the scissors. And he's just whipping the shit out of her, and she's getting cut on her arms and her face and her leg and all this stuff. But then the exterminator dude creeps up behind Art, and I don't think he even uses a weapon. I think he just like socks Art in the side of the head. Like, I think he just punches him. But he hits Art in the side of the head, and Art like gets knocked out. He grabs the girl and he's like, I'm gonna get you out of here, you know? So he takes her to like this back room and shuts the door. And then he's like, hey, there's a phone right there. I'm gonna go call the police. And she's like, don't leave me. And I was like, it's 2 feet away. Like, I was like, what do you mean? I get like she's going into shock and stuff, but it just seemed funny to me that she's like, don't leave when the phone is literally right next to her. So he goes and calls 911 and is super aggressive with the 911 operator. Where he's like, you need to get your fucking asses down here. You motherfuckers, like, just cussing at him. And I was like, why are you being so rude? Also, the weird thing, Maverick, I could have sworn when I watched this movie the first time that he was talking to Art there. For some reason, I have this memory of, like, the 911 operator being like, I'm actually the killer or whatever. And I don't know if maybe that happens in All Hallows Eve, and that's why I was thinking about that, or if it's just another movie that I've completely mistaken. But I was sitting there like, oh yeah, this is a fake 911 operator. But then it ended up being like a real person. And I was like, oh okay. But yeah, so he's like sending the cops down here. There was a murder, all this shit. He grabs the sister. They go to leave, but there's a chain locked around the door that leads to the outside. And so the dude's like, fuck. So he goes looking around for something to bust this chain. As he does that, though, Art comes around the corner holding, like, the exterminator tank and hits the dude in the head. And gets him down on the ground and then starts stomping on his head till eventually his head just, poof, goes boom. Once again, twice in 2 times in a row we've had head explosion in our podcast. Which, we've had a lot of movies that I can think of where people have stomped on heads until they, just... Do you think that's real? Like, if you just kept stomping on someone, that it would just poof like that?
No, I think it just kind of smushed.
Yeah, I don't think, like... Yeah, I think it just kind of caves in. Like... I don't know, but I guess it looks better if it just just blows up. But so he kills the exterminator dude. The chick manages to use like a fucking lug wrench or something. I don't remember, but she just hits the chain a bunch and then it like busts, and so she's able to get out the door. She goes running. She then squeezes through like these other doors that are chained, and Art like grabs the back of her hair and rips out some of her hair. And she's like, what, fuck you, Art, then she's like, you're a maniac. Art sticks his arm through the thing and has a horn. He's like, and just keeps honking the horn at her. And so eventually she like, gets a weapon and goes to like hurt him, but he leaves. And then I got really mad because she like walks over to the door and stands like right there peeking out. And nothing happens to her right there, but still, I was like, why would you ever do that? Like, I hate character decisions like this. So, she's waiting here. She starts to hear police sirens, and she's like, oh, cool, the police are coming. But, right before that, as she's standing at the door, a truck drives through the door and hits the girl, and so she, like, falls onto the ground. Art the Clown has stolen the exterminator truck that pulled up earlier, and he's like blasting jazz music and shit. He gets out, he goes over to her on the ground, and he like starts to smell her and stuff. And then we cut to the cops coming in, and they see Art, and Art is eating her face, basically. He's just chewing on it, having a good old time. The cops are like, hands up, show us your hands. Art puts up his left hand, but on his right, he's reaching down to his boot to get his gun. And boy, let me tell you, these cops were real slow on the draw, weren't they? Like,
oh yeah,
homie's reaching the whole time, and they don't shoot. And then they even allow him to do a full spin towards them without shooting. And they never fire one shot. Art eventually spins around, and you think he's going to, like, shoot both of them. But he has the gun in his own mouth, and he shoots himself and kills himself. And so the cops are like, oh, shit. So they, like, radio in, hey, we got suspect down. They also see that the girl's still alive, so they say, we got one alive here, you know, all this stuff. We then go to the police coroner, who, funny enough, I think was the best actor in the whole movie. Like, he's only in it for, like, this last little bit, but for some reason I was like, man, this guy's really good. And he's
Really?
like, yeah, he's talking about, like, you know, once you see an 8-month-old baby microwave to death, everything else is, like, easy to see and all this shit. I was like, but, yeah, so the dude is, like, he opens up the one bag, and I think it's, like, the janitor whose head was caved in or whatever. And then he walks over and opens up Art's bag, and he's like, I hope your 15 minutes of fame was worth it, you piece of shit. And he opens it up, and Art is sitting there with his one eye open and smiling at the guy, and the dude's like, what? And then all the lights start flickering on and off. The telephone starts ringing. I swear you can hear someone talking in the telephone. It sounds like a girl, like, making a phone call. I think that might have been an Easter egg to All Hallows Eve, because I think it might have been the girls from that movie on the phone, because they make a phone call in there. But I'm not sure. And, like, the radio is playing, and the lights are flickering. And then eventually it, like, all settles down, and the dude's like, huh. And he turns back to Art, and Art grabs him by the neck and sits up and chokes the dude to death. Well, you don't see it, but he's, like, choking him, and then we fade away. And we go over to the sister, who is getting wheeled out of the hospital. And when they turn around, I guess that's the big reveal that it's the girl with the messed up face that we saw earlier. And the movie ends with the nurse saying, good luck with your interview tomorrow. And that's how it ends. The reason why I don't like this, okay, is because first off, the girl, when they bring up that Art's body disappeared from the police coroner on the news, the girl is like, no, I saw him die. Excuse me, bitch.
Yeah, you were passed the fuck out.
You were completely, your face all eaten. You were all messed up. You did not see him die. Then the other thing is she talks about, you know, it's been hard going on with my life. I want to die. Kids are afraid of me. She just got out of the hospital and did the interview the next day.
The very next day.
Yeah, I was like, what? So that ending kind of messes with the, you know, thing. I get they wanted to have the line of good luck with your interview, but we couldn't have made it like a different time. Like, that ending really, so that ending made me not like that interview at the beginning. But that's Terrifier. This movie had a budget of $35,000. And I couldn't find a box office. I don't really think it was in very many theaters. I know it was like in festivals and shit. By the way, Terrifier 2 is set to be released in fall of 2022. So
yeah,
there we go. I saw that. Also, so I don't remember in Hallows Eve a lot. Even though that was like the first one I watched, I didn't watch Terrifier first, and I always confused which one was first. And All Hallows Eve, it's made clear throughout the film that Art the Clown was supernatural and not just a human in a clown suit. In this movie, they wait until the very end with the lights flickering to be like, oh, he's got powers or something. So, there you go.
I didn't, I thought he was just a clown. I had no idea.
Yeah.
They sort of just put that at the end. The
they did.
Powers.
Yeah, it kind of like, it doesn't fit in the movie at all, but it was pretty cool. Like, I liked it, the lights flickering and like the sounds they had going on. But yeah, it just kind of felt out of place. Let's do best of, worst of for Terrifier. My best of is gonna be Art chopping the dude's hand off and then like stabbing him in the face all that time.
It's a pretty good one, yeah.
At the pizza restaurant. I know like the kill from the movie is like the slice in half, but that was always my favorite kill when I watched it the first time was like the pizza guy. So that's my favorite. Least favorite is just the dumb like I saw him die and my life's been hard, dude, because then the ending completely ruins everything that lady was talking about. Like it doesn't make sense. And that bothered me, maybe more than it should have, but it bothered me. God damn it! I want some, I want some clear ground. I don't know what I'm saying. Whatever, it's fine. Maverick, what's your best of worst of for this one?
Best of was the quick draw scene.
Quick draw,
that was fucking amazing. Yeah. Worst of. Probably that lady. Right?
That was
lady.
Yeah. If I didn't pick that, it would have been the doll lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the way she died, but
yeah.
Other than that, yeah, I got nothing.
She did give Art a nice little skin suit type thing that he was wearing, so
she did.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, hey, I think that's about the end of Terrifier. Like I said, I think it sets out to be a gory, over-the-top slasher type movie, and I think it succeeds with that.
It succeeds in that, yeah.
Yeah. I
don't think the script was all there.
No.
And to be fair, I don't think it needed to be, but
yeah,
you know, you need something to follow other than crazy clown with like some females in a warehouse that they can't escape.
Yeah.
Right? And that's pretty much like the whole basis of
we don't need this doll lady in here to have Art sucking on his thumb, hugging her, and it's whatever. Also, I feel like if I look it up, that exterminator dude was probably the director of the movie. I don't know why. They were like, oh man, that guy looks weirder than Art the Clown. I was like, that's fucked up. Why y'all gotta do my guy like that?
Just trying to work. He's a hardworking man.
Hardworking man. This is him. Let me see. It's not him. That's a shame. I thought it was. All right. Well, next week, it's my pick, and we're watching a remake of a movie from the 60s, I believe, is when the original came out. I've never seen the original. Maybe one day I'll watch it. But I've seen the remake that I'm picking, and boy, it was a fucking it was really good when I watched it the first time. So I hope it lives up to the hype I have for it going in the second time. Starring the one and only Maverick, Robert De Niro, who I believe this is our first movie we've ever watched with Robert De Niro on the podcast. Why does it sound weird? Is that not his name?
Robert De Niro?
That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds weird when I'm saying it. I don't know why. But anyway, Robert De Niro in Cape Fear from 1991. So that's what we're watching. Robert De Niro plays a fucking creepy ass recently released convict in the South. He's got this crazy like little Southern accent. Got this big Jesus tattoo on his back and shit. And he's scary, motherfucker. I
think I almost picked that one day.
He's a creepy ass dude in this. Yeah. The cool thing about going into it is like I know exactly which part is my least favorite part because I like the whole movie, Maverick, and then you'll get about an hour 40 in, and then there's just like a 15-minute scene in here that's the most boring piece of shit ever, and you're like, why did they put this in the movie? So tell me if you figure out which part that is when you watch the pod or the movie. But next week, Cape Fear from 91. Then yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Next week, there might be shorts coming out. I don't have any in the bank. I gotta sit down and make some. Fucking link to the gaming channel in the description. What else? Got anything you like to add, Maverick?
No, I don't really have anything.
All right. I don't think there's any overtimes coming out. I don't have anything planned. Yeah. So I do need to start another overtime series. I wanted me and Tyler to do Paranormal Activity, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. But it might. There was also a trilogy I wanted to watch, and I was like, oh well, that's pretty easy because there's like 3 of them and you can blaze through them. Can't remember which one it was though. But anyway, maybe some extra stuff will be coming out. But yeah, we'll see you next week. Cape Fear. Thanks for watching. So long.